welcome to Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. Pulitzer Prize-winning Ojibwe author Louise Erdrich has a new book out. Python's Kiss is a collection of 13 short stories, each crafted to capture profound heartbreak, pivotal memories, and alluring animals that haunt and mystify a wide range of diverse characters. And every story is accompanied by an illustration by artist Asa Erdrich Abe, Louise's daughter and longtime book cover artist. The creative duo joins us after the news.
This is National Native News. I'm Jill Freitas. More than 400 athletes from over 100 communities gathered in Anchorage over this year's Native Youth Olympics, held April 16th through the 18th at the Alaska Airlines Center. Among them was Mila Neely, a sophomore at Juneau Douglas High School in Juneau, or Yada Akeshle. But for Neely, the competition went beyond physical strength. She is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation with family roots in Oklahoma, where her ancestors, including her great-great-great-great-grandmother, were forced to walk the Trail of Tears. When she was 9 years old, she retraced that history alongside her father and great-grandfather.
It's kind of like undescribable to stand where your ancestors stand, and for me, Kwawatla was while she was walking the Trail of Tears, she would have been thinking of me. And that's just a really crazy feeling.
Neely says that experience continues to shape how she approaches the games.
For the games, especially when I'm doing seal hop, I'll be like, my grandma walked the Trail of Tears, I can make it to the end.
She also sees connections between Cherokee traditions and Alaska Native values, rooted in community strength.
For our ancestors, you really just wanted other people to do good, because if they don't do good, then their family might go hungry.
For Neely, every event carries a deeper purpose.
I hope I'd be making her proud, kind of make my ancestors proud, and keep our culture alive.
She says she's competing not just for herself, but for the generations who came before her, and those still to come. For the second year in a row, the Trump administration is proposing to end all funding for the nation's tribal colleges and universities, or TCUs. As Brian Bull of Buffalo's Fire reports, administrators are rallying against the proposal.
The American Indian Higher Education Consortium has blasted the White House's proposed cuts, saying it's deeply concerned that the Trump budget for fiscal year 2027, quote, does not align with the administration's stated policies to support rural America and expand access to higher education. But Wanda Parisian, president of Turtle Mountain Community College in Belcourt, North Dakota, says this renewed call is a disheartening prospect.
Our programs are going to be cut, so we're going to have fewer students. If we have fewer students, we're not going to have the money to pay our instructors.
Another tribal institution of higher learning is Noweta, Hidatsa, and Sauknish Community College in Fort Berthold. Its president, Twyla Baker, says she and other administrators will be working with the congressional representatives to challenge this proposed cut.
Our representatives are highly cognizant of the fact that we are economic drivers in our communities. The TCUs, we generated $3.8 billion for the U.S. economy and supported over 40,000 jobs in healthcare and government and retail.
Besides the disruption caused should the cuts to tribal colleges and universities be implemented, tribal administrators say it'd be a violation of the federal government's trust and treaty obligation to tribes. Tommy K. Phillips is president of Sitting Bull College in Fort Yates, North Dakota. She's cautiously optimistic the funding cuts will be thwarted eventually.
I believe that we will get the funding. It just doesn't make sense for them not to fund us. We make do with what we have if we have to. Our ancestors went through worse things, and we will always be okay.
The proposed cut to tribal colleges and universities comes to roughly $160 million and includes TCUs, institutes operated by the Bureau of Indian Education, technical colleges, and scholarships. It came through the U.S. Interior Department, helmed by former North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. A request for comment on the proposal to Secretary Burgum was not answered. For National Native News, I'm Brian Bull.
And I'm Jill Freitas.
National Native News is produced by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation with funding by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Support by the Gathering of Nations Powwow. The last dance is this April 24th and 25th at Expo, New Mexico. Gone's last horse rider and regalia parade takes place at 4 p.m. both days. Tickets at gatheringofnations.com and at the gates.
Support by Sonosky Chambers Law, championing tribal sovereignty and Native American rights since 1976. From opioids litigation to treaty rights to tribal self-governance. With offices in Washington, D.C., New Mexico, California, and Alaska. Sonosky Chambers Law.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.
This is Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. Python's Kiss by Ojibwe author Louise Erdrich is a collection of short stories that are just as poignant and rich as her novels. In a story titled Domain, Erdrich imagines an afterlife run by a corporation. In Wedding Dresses, the protagonist relives her past marriages and heartbreaks to a curious niece. And in a story titled December 26, an escaped pet boa constrictor is the least of Carlene's worries as her world falls apart. Each creative story is told through Erdrich's wide range of compelling characters and illustrated by Asa Erdrich Abe, Louise's daughter and longtime book cover artist. Erdrich is the author of many books that have earned multiple literary awards, including the Pulitzer Prize and National Book Award. And 2 stories from Python's Kiss are already slated to appear in forthcoming prize-winning collections of the best short stories of 2026. Erdrich and Asia join us today for our regular Native Bookshelf feature. You can join us by calling 1-800-996-2848. That number is also 1-800-99-NATIVE. Louise Erdrich joins us now from Minneapolis, Minnesota, where she is an author and owner of Birch Bark Books and a member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa. Louise, hello, and welcome back to Native America Calling.
Hello, Anine. It's me. I'm so glad to talk to you. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Louise. Great to have you back on the show. Also joining us from Minneapolis is Asa Erdrich Abe. She is an artist, illustrator, and a descendant of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa. Asa, this is your first time on the show. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. Miigwech, Sean. Bonjour, everyone. It's great to be here.
Bonjour to you as well and all of our listeners. And Louise, I want to begin with you. These stories were collected, as I understand it, through the span of about 20 years. What went into selecting these 13 specific stories?
Well, I would like to think that there were, like more stories, like 40 stories, and I just had to pick some of them. But really, these were the only ones that I truly felt were finished. So that's how they got picked. And then they were put in a certain order. I just felt like there was always an order to these stories. So whether you read them in order or not doesn't really matter, but it mattered to me, that there be a new voice that would be kind of hinging off the first story, right? So, yes, they've been a long time in the works.
It sounds like it, yeah. And what fascinates me is you just have a wide range of themes, lots of different characters, and some of these, of course, are very Native-specific types of stories. Others aren't. Others, there's not really any reference to anybody's background with regard to Native heritage or otherwise. And I'm curious, Louise, because you're known so well as a novelist, and the writing process, is it different for short stories as opposed to writing a novel?
Yeah, it's really different. I feel as though writing a short story is more akin to writing a poem. And for me, writing a poem is an overflow of emotion and language and something that I will write and then straighten up afterwards, see what I've written and work with it, work it into some form. And it's very much the same with a story. I get this paragraph or a character or something that really doesn't leave me alone, and I write that down. But I might go back to that 10 years later, and write another paragraph, or I might go back and half finish it. These come together quite slowly, some of them, and then some are just kind of get the tail end of everything and just kind of go and tell the story as if it's being told to me.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Yeah.
Do you ever write a story, a short story or a novel, publish it, it's completely done, and then 3 years later look back and reflect and say, geez, you know what? I wish I'd written that differently. I'd like to change the ending to that story, or I'd like to introduce a new character, or just switch it up in some way. Does it ever happen?
In fact, I rewrote a book called The Antelope Wife and almost entirely rewrote it. It's now Antelope Woman. And I think it's one of the best of books, but really very few people have noticed that it's different because it has the same type of title. And the first, 30 pages are pretty much the same, but after that it's just an entirely different book.
I need to reread that now and pay more attention. Let's go back to these short stories that you just published now, Python's Kiss. And of course, there's a snake on the cover, and then there is a snake that makes an appearance in some of the stories. Tell me more about the title and just the reference to snakes throughout the book.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of snakes in this book, and I hadn't really expected there to be so many snakes, but we just kept coming up with snakes, and Asa kept, whether you were thinking about it or not, Asa, the snakes kept popping up in, there'd be a stream or a vacuum hose or something else, and they were snaky. There's a lot of snaky things, but I didn't grow up being afraid of snakes. My mother's childhood house, a cabin up in the Turtle Mountains, it must have been on top of a snake den, so it always had garter snakes, really harmless little striped snakes, and Asa used to like to play with them and pick them up and let them twine along. Or we always liked snakes. Some people, there are no venomous snakes in Minnesota, North Dakota, so it was safe to pick them up, and I really liked them. I don't like spiders, though.
And there's a spider. There's a spider in one of the stories. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Asa, let me ask you, in addition to the snakes, of course, talk about the process of working with Louise, your mother, and also the editors on illustrating all these stories.
Well, the process is really a joy because we've, of course, been mother and daughter of our entire relationship, but our relationship as artists continues to develop. We're both, I love the written word, but I create more visual art, and she creates visual art too, but is, primarily a writer, but we can appreciate the different mediums and just talk about them together and get excited. So as I was reading the manuscript and we were speaking about what scenes to pull out for each piece, it was a wonderful process. We got to really dive into what is the essence of each story, or what feels right. Where can it be serious? Where is it funny? And we really, trust each other. She would say, that's not quite right. I'll say, great, we'll try something else. And if I said, Mom, I've got it. This is the scene. I've got to draw the daughter vacuuming. And she's like, okay, go for it. I don't know. And then it turned out, well. So I think we had a lot of fun with this project. And I've always loved, picture books. and graphic novels, anytime that words and images are coming together to express emotion. So to me, this is almost like a grown-up picture book. You get that pleasurable experience of seeing something from the story brought into, a visual medium, and yet you still have enough space to create your own images as you read, which I love to do.
I really like the placement of the illustrations and how the beginning at page 1 of each story, you have the illustration and some of them are kind of a summary of the plot. And I would look at the illustration and I would think, wow, well, this is interesting. And I wonder how this is all going to play out. This looks like an interesting, and then sure enough, I'd read the story and then I'd understand more about the illustration and how it was designed. Especially there's a story, The Hollow Children, about a really fateful bus journey during a blizzard. And that, again, one of the most poignant, well, they're all really poignant, but again, that was an illustration that really captivated my attention. So we're going to take
Sean. That's exactly how I think we intended it. You look at the picture, then read the story, and you can come back to the art with a new understanding, but they play off each other. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a short break. We'll come back and continue our conversation, and we're going to learn more about Python's Kiss, the stories that are comprised in this collection, and also just more about the creative process and the writing process, and also the illustration process and what went into writing this book and many other books by Louise Erdrich as well. So, listeners, you can join this conversation as always. If you are a fan of Louise Erdrich's writing, or you just would like to ask a question, or just a book buff in general and you enjoy reading and you really like Native books specifically, this is a show for you, because we're really digging in now with one of the most celebrated Native American authors in the world today, Louise Erdrich, and she's always really generous with her time and always a wonderful guest on our show. So we really appreciate the time she takes. And of course, Asa Erdrich Abe as well, who is joining us and the illustrator of this collection of short stories. So stay with us. And for those of you who would like to join the conversation, what are you waiting for? Give us a call right now. The number is 1-800-996-2848. 1-800-996-2848. The Trump administration backed down this month from its year-long effort to dismantle a federal agency that helped fund tribal libraries. It's a victory for library advocates, but does little to reinstate trust for tribal libraries that had to scramble for funding and cut programming. On National Library Week, we'll check in on tribal libraries and literary advocates looking to stave off local and state book bans.
Who protects Indian country? Amerant does. As the only 100% tribally owned insurance carrier, Amerant helps strengthen tribal communities by providing reliable insurance coverage and keeping dollars in Indian country. From property and liability to commercial auto and tribal workers' compensation, Amerant is here to protect what matters. Celebrating 40 years of serving Indian country. Learn more at amerant.com. That's AMERIND.com.
To Native America Calling, I'm Sean Spruce, and we're talking with author Louise Erdrich today about her new book, Python's Kiss. It is a collection of 13 short stories. And listeners, you can join us with your comments or questions by calling 1-800-996-2848. That number is also 1-800-99-NATIVE. Louise, let's talk about some specific stories in Python's Kiss. And there are two stories that have a bit of a surprising turn. They're titled Domain and Asphodel. And tell me more about the motivation for these stories, because it's all about an afterlife, a virtual afterlife that's controlled by a corporation.
Yes, this is a landscape that, or not a cyberscape that has been kicking around. Maybe 20 years ago, I started thinking about this. And now it almost seems like it could happen tomorrow. It's really weird.
Absolutely. Yes.
This is a place where people people have to work their whole lives to be able to afford to get in. It's sort of like a really high level college that you have to apply to get into. And but the people, however, who go there have very, very real personalities and have motives for going there. And they can be going there for revenge. They can be taking a child along in their contracts. I just really enjoyed writing these stories because the landscape became very real to me when I realized it was all made up of people's memories.
Well, I know there's a big movement among some tech entrepreneurs with regard to this idea of everlasting life and what that might look like, and like being able to download people's memories and things like that. So yeah, I mean, but this story really talks about like the human element of it. There's this one part where the person is going through, and I don't want to give too many spoiler alerts away, but they're going through this kind of transitional process, and they're saying goodbye to their physical body, and just the different parts.
Yeah.
And that was so moving, and it really made me think about, I mean, what would that really be like if this was possible, and if at some point in the future it is possible to essentially live forever like this. Yeah.
Well, would it be, that this person goes there, with revenge in mind, and so we get to follow along this. Revenge is always great in a plot, and so we get to follow along and see if she's able to do that. But I like the picture that goes with this so much because there's a painted background, and then there's this sort of saying goodbye to, and then there's all of these different pieces from the physical life that this woman is saying goodbye to, and they're just scattering through this
Yes, just
space.
as you described them.
Yeah, well, it's great.
Yeah, Asa, tell us
And there's
more
a snake there.
about
Well,
about the drawings that accompany these two stories. Yeah, and I
It's
mentioned
interesting
earlier.
that
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I shared earlier, I have a 12-year-old daughter, and one of the stories really reminded me of her. In the illustration for Asphodel, that the girl that's illustrated very much reminds me, looks a lot like my daughter, in fact. So,
Oh,
but yeah,
really? Wow.
yeah. Tell me though more about what went into these drawings specifically for these two stories.
For Domain and Asphodel, they're very different. Every single, just as the stories are different, the art ended up being very diverse in its composition. And I'm struck that you pulled out that same moment, the saying goodbye to the physical self and becoming a new entity that's still you but different. And that's the moment that stood out so strongly to me as well. And so that's the moment I attempted to illustrate. Very, abstract kind of piece of art where the background is the skies, because she had focused on remembering all these different skies so that she could bring them into the world that she's being downloaded into. Just like you said, Mother, the concept of a world created by memory is so compelling. And so she's specifically trained herself on skies. So all these different cloud types. I studied different cloud types and tried to paint them in, and then that disintegration process from the physical into the cube, which is sort of a character in the story. And then coming out of the cube, she's mostly memories. And so all the little things you describe in the story come out on the other side. The frying of mushrooms, the way a vine twirls around a fence, all these moments that you picked out, and I tried to illustrate. And then the ultimate moment at the bottom of the page, which is the crux of the story. And then in Asphodel, that was the one where I thought, it's that vacuuming moment, that's the pivotal moment I'd like to draw. And you gave me the go ahead. And it was really fun. And it's funny because in that moment there's something happening between a mother and daughter that I don't really relate to
Well,
exactly.
the mother's losing out big time.
She really is.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Yeah.
that daughter had been stifled for too long, which is just not,
Too
like I
long.
said, something I
No.
relate to in any
Yeah.
way. So,
Oh, geez.
but that one is funny and
That one is
sexy,
funny.
like the story, I love that one.
Asa, when did you first start drawing and illustrating covers for your mother's books?
Let's see, just out of college. So I went to Dartmouth, like my mom. And then I was just a working artist in Flagstaff, actually, for a few years. And she said, they're doing my back catalog. Do you want to throw your hat in the ring? So I think the paperback for Tales of Burning Love was the first one. And I love that one
Yeah.
because that's a moment where they scatter his ashes out of a Valentine's, like a heart-shaped Valentine's candy box, holds this man's ashes. Great moment. So it's the moment on the cover of Abstractly. And then from there, we did the back catalog, and I believe started with doing hardcovers. I can't remember which is first, Future Home or La Rose, but those were the first couple hardcovers. And then we've
Right.
been, at least in the US, some other international publishers have used my covers too, but in the US, I've been doing your covers since then.
Yeah. And then often they go into international editions. So they're going
It's,
all over the world. Yep.
I mean, it's just the wrapping paper. The gift is the book inside. So I'm, happy to collaborate,
Oh,
but I'm
well,
just a
as
big fan
a
as well.
bookseller.
It's
So
important, though.
judge
That cover is
you judge it
important.
before it's cover. Oh yeah, as a bookseller, you want a good cover.
That's
Trick
very
or a
true.
good cover. Yeah, so I love working with Asa. She's she like can you tell she's really funny? She's really
I
funny
sure
to work
can.
with.
Yeah. And I can tell you folks just have a really good rapport and you just kind of joke with each other. But I imagine sometimes you might have some creative differences and maybe some disagreements with regard to how these illustrations should appear. What happens when you kind of butt heads a little bit, or does it happen? Do you always agree?
Well, I can't remember when, but there must have been a time. And basically, if
It was the
Asa
horse. It was the horse.
hold the horse.
The
Well,
horse.
okay, so my our Asa's grandma, my mom, is also an artist, and she never holds back. If something wouldn't work in a drawing I made, she'd say, the arm's wrong. And I think it was perfect. I kind of go around a little crushed. The arm's wrong. So the horse is the most difficult animal to draw. And I had to say to Ace, I think I'll go back and
In the
get
love of
this
my
one kind
days.
of horse.
The love of
Yeah,
my days.
love of my days. And you went back and you worked so hard on that horse.
It did. We really
They're
had,
hard to draw.
the horses in that story are so the relationship between those horses. And congratulations, that story was just picked up for the O. Henry Prize, and I was trying to learn how to draw a horse, and I eventually think we got
Yeah,
it
you got
where it needed to be, but it was a good process because we're so kind in our family and protective of each other. But sometimes you have to say, hey, that horse is not horsey enough. It's not quite right. It's not, or at least, or and then in that one too, it was the style of clothing needed to be right. And um, I'm like happy to say I want to get things right. A little
Yeah.
bit touch of perfectionism. So I was glad to hear feedback and to know that if there was something you really weren't feeling worked, you would let me know. I think that was the biggest one, and other ones were just ongoing conversations and
Yeah,
worked
so
out well.
this is only, I mean, this is there's another level to this mother-daughter madness here, and that is that Palace, who is a bookstore manager, Palace
Sister.
read the audiobook for this book. And what made me think about it, I mean, it's a fantastic reading of the book. she was going back and forth across South Minneapolis when the invasion happened here, and she was so full of emotion, and so the um, the way she got her emotion into the words is so beautiful. That story in particular. Uh, so there's Palace as well. Palace as well. This is a
There's
wonderful.
4 of us daughters.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we're all doing something on some giant project at any one time.
Yeah. Must have some great dinner conversations at your homes there, just discussing these different projects and some of the the family history as well. Let's take a caller. We have Keith, who is listening right now to the show in Newtown, North Dakota, on radio station KMHA.
Oh.
Hello, Keith. You're on the air.
Hey, Keith, how you doing?
Doing well, Keith. How
Good
you
to
doing?
hear you again.
Hello.
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 Hello, Keith. We can hear you.
Hi.
What's your comment?
Oh, good. I'm not sure. I'm kind of down in the valley right now. Yeah, I got the opportunity to meet Louise on several occasions while I was working with children. I'm a storyteller from Mandan Hiraz, the Rikara Nation, and I travel quite a bit. But I've read her stories, and I've always been purchaser of her books for my grandchildren. So now that I hear you working with your daughter as an illustrator, I have some grandchildren that are very good artists. So I think you've encouraged me to start writing these stories and maybe have my little relatives help me to illustrate them, because it is about young people. And if I can get them involved, maybe the things will work longer.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Keith, thank you for calling in. Louise, go ahead and respond, because I imagine that's a lot of what inspires you is motivating other people to share their stories too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's much of it. And before, at some point in this show, it's Native American Poetry Month. So if we get to a place, I have a couple of poems to share just in honor of poetry.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to make a note of that. Don't let me forget, Louise. We'll set aside a few minutes to have you read a poem. I also want to talk about some of the other stories in the collection, because some of them have some dark humor and other elements. And our producer Andy, she read the book too, and she really liked the story titled December 26th. Give us a little overview of this story and what inspired you to write it.
Oh, God, how can I? This beginning of this story is about December 26th. It's the day after Christmas, and everything's on the floor. All of the presents you've given out or have not worked or have worked or whatever, all the wrappings on the floor, the tree's looking sad. You still want to cook something or celebrate, but you're kind of tired. It's that December 26th feeling. Yeah. So it's December 26th. But one thing that happened, she didn't have the kind of money to get her son and her daughter the things they really might want. But her son brought home a boa constrictor in a garbage bag, and she was really glad about this, because here he fended for himself. He got himself a present, so she feels a little off the hook about this. But then the snake leads to, of course, these things always lead to one more revelation and another revelation, and first thing you know, the snake's in the wall. There's a baby in the house that she didn't expect. Her daughter and the baby, and electricity goes out. This is Aza's picture. And they're all getting in bed to stay warm. And then they know the snake's in the wall, so they figure if they eat all the junk food they have in the house and empty all the wrappers out, they can put all the wrappers around their bed and they will hear the snake. So so you can see them sleeping in the bed surrounded by the junk food wrappers.
That's the level of desperation.
Yeah.
That story is incredible.
It's a strategy. Yeah.
And there's also
there's a snake in the wall.
And there's a missing cat, and we'll leave it at that. How about that?
Oh yeah, that cat. Have you seen that cat? Oh.
Okay, we need to take another short break. And Louise, how about you get your poem ready? Okay, and we come back from this break. We'll go ahead and have you read a poem. And for other listeners who would like to join the conversation, give us a call. Again, the phone lines are open, 1-800-996-2848. We just heard from Keith up in Newtown, North Dakota. He had a great call, a great take to share with us, and you could be the next person to share your take or ask Louise or Asa a question or just compliment them and tell us what you love about their work. Again, that number is 1-800-996-2848, or you can always also go to our social media sites such as Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads, as well as our website, nativeamericacalling.com. You can post, comment with regards to this show and all of our past shows as well. And remember, you can always listen to previous episodes of Native America Calling at our website, nativeamericacalling.com, or just go to your favorite podcast platform like Spotify. You can do that as well. So stay with us. We'll be right back because Louise Erdrich is going to read a poem on the other side of this break.
Tribal Development Partners believe strong infrastructure strengthens tribal sovereignty. Through the 105L lease program, TDP helps align federal funding systems with long-term tribal priorities. More at tribaldevpartners.com. Proud to support this show.
Kaufman & Associates is a Native-owned and led consulting firm supporting Native communities with culturally grounded solutions to shape Indigenous futures. More at kaufmaninc.com, KAUFFMANINC.com.
This is Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce, and we are talking with famed author Louise Erdrich and artist Asa Erdrich Abe about their recent project, Python's Kiss. It is a collection of short stories by Louise, accompanied by illustrations by Asa. Have you had a chance to read some of the stories yet? If so, there's still plenty of time to join this conversation. We're at 1-800-996-2848. Tell us, what is your favorite story in Python's Kiss? And Louise, you mentioned earlier that April is Native American Poetry Month, so please indulge us. Share a poem with our listeners now.
Okay, I'm going to read a poem by Jake Skeets, whose first collection of poems was titled Eyes Bottled Dark with a Mouthful of Flowers. Incredible title. And this one is Horses, and this is a very short poem. I carry sound. On the range the sun holds its head low. I carry wind. There is nothing but sand here. I carry morning. The door crickets and sprawls in an open field. I carry light, but just a bend of it, an echo around a face. Jake Skeets. Ooh. Wow.
He is the Navajo Nation Poet Laureate. Is that correct? I'm looking online.
Yeah. And also I have to put a shout out because Layli Long Soldier is coming out with a new book any minute now called We, and it's fantastic. It's just I'm trying to figure out some words to say about it so to get a good enough blurb for it, and it's really hard. It's really hard. It's so good. It's called We. We, yeah.
Do you enjoy writing poetry as well, Louise?
I don't think of poems very often, but I really love when a poem occurs to me Usually they're pretty bad, but then sometimes there's one that I rather.
I doubt that.
Yeah, I do too. I really do.
Yeah, you do because you're blood. Yeah, you doubt it.
Asa, how about you? Do you write as well, or do you focus primarily on the visual arts?
Yeah, she does.
I do write. I've been writing more poetry in about the last 10 years since I've been raising kids, my sons. And I've had them one after another, and it's been a busy time. So sometimes I'm not able to get my visual idea out, but I can write a few words down, scrap of paper, which I've always witnessed my mom doing, You'd pull over to the side of the road and just be like, don't say anything, just got to write something down real quick.
And at least I pulled over, right?
Yes, she would always pull over.
Yeah.
But so I have been writing. I'm thinking as I go into this next phase where my kids are a little older and got a little more time of taking those poems that I've written, processing some of the things that have happened in my life and in the world, and seeing how I can translate them visually, because that's really more the medium I'm comfortable with. But who knows how those words and pictures will combine, like with this project. Going forward, I'll see what comes. I'm actually starting at IAIA in the fall, so for my MFA. So we'll see what comes.
Oh, okay. Well, that's exciting. Louise, you mentioned the book We that's coming out in October, and just want to repeat that for our listeners that might be interested. Again, the book is titled We, and the author, Layli Long Soldier, and you can expect that to be published this fall. So good information. And just to clarify, National Poetry Month, again, this month in April. And Louise, I want to go back to Python's Kiss and some of these stories, some of these characters that you introduce. Do you expect ever maybe to revisit some of these stories again, or maybe even expand them into a future novel? Has that ever occurred?
Well, the first time I published short stories in a collection, they all had been part of novels. Not all of them, but some of them had. And I used to write stories and then just keep going with them. But I've stopped doing that, and I was glad about it, because these were stories. They're meant to be stories. They're meant to stop. So, and I don't know if I want to. I like having just the stories as they are. I like having them.
Yeah. And some of them, the endings,
I read over and over. Yeah.
A little bit ambiguous. I like those stories that kind of leave the reader to kind of interpret and kind of choose for themselves what ultimately might occur or what the ending ultimately means. Louise, how about when you talk with readers, and again, so many of your stories can be interpreted in different ways. Are you ever surprised, though, by how people interpret your stories? Or is there a particular story or a novel, perhaps, that somebody came to you and their interpretation was like, wow, that was just something I'd never really thought of, or that's really a unique take on my writing?
Yes, but I can't say offhand that I sort of accept whatever people make of a piece of writing, because once it's done, it's no longer for me. If I got what I wanted across, then that's fine. But if you take something else from it, it belongs to you. It doesn't have anything to do with me after it's done.
Now, I noticed some of the stories, well, like I mentioned earlier, some of them are very Native specific, and the characters are Native and the themes are Native. Others not so much, but you do tap into some current issues that are very hot topics throughout Native America right now. And there is one character in one of the stories who is described as a pretend Indian and claims to be a member of the Wendigo tribe, and I had to Google Wendigo.
Say that.
Yeah, It just, once you Google it, you
What
figure,
does she
okay,
say?
yeah, this really doesn't
A tribe
fit.
of
But
them would end the
yeah,
world.
right.
She gets really freaked out when this pretendian who's kind of stolen her husband, and she's trying to, uh, question her about her background, and she says that she's part of the Wendigo tribe, and she basically practically faints and goes,
Great.
right, a tribe of them would end the world. So,
A malevolent cannibalistic monster known to
right.
Ojibwe, Algonquin tribes. Yeah. Wow.
That
Yeah.
was such a great moment in the story. Oh.
It
Yeah, and
was.
so there had to be, I guess that is I think it's always been part of the culture, but this is a particularly fraught time, and I just had to put something in there. I think there's a few places where there's always topical things that get into the books.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 books that are like a trilogy about justice that have to do with areas of conflict and jurisdiction and law around reservation land uses. And, all of these things are always so crucial. I did start writing about casinos way back, and they've certainly become more and more powerful. So there's always something that it has to pop up.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of your writing of casino, I think my favorite book of all of your books, Louise, is Bingo Palace. And I can't believe it's been
it
over
is.
30 years, right? 95 is when you published
Oh, has it? Oh my
that. Yeah.
gosh.
I didn't really, I thought, no, it's not
A
that old.
long time ago.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
We've got
That's
another
a long
caller on the
time.
Another caller on
What?
the line. We have another caller. This
Oh,
is
cool.
Hazel,
Cool.
who is listening on WOJB in Wisconsin. Hi, Hazel. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Well, first of all, I just want to respond. I love Bingo Palace, too, and Lipshaw. Lipshaw is just somebody I never forget. But the question I have, when I first read both Love Medicine and Tracks, I'm non-native, and the first time I read it, I just felt the tragedy in it. But then especially my native friends would point out the humor. And then vice versa, at the end of, I don't remember which book it was, Louise was at a conference talking about the ending. And here I was rooting for this young man that finally his life was coming together. And at the end of the book, he dies in a car accident. And Louise just said very knowingly, well, he had to die. Anyway, talk about comic and tragic interpretations of your books and maybe connect whether or not it's ethnic connected.
Go ahead, Louise, please.
There's a time in the beginning of the book when you sometimes know how the book's going to end, and you try to fight it, but if it's tragic, but you can't. That's how it has to go. So that was the book you're talking about, is The Roundhouse. And I knew early on in the book because I think there was a round black stone, which are thunderbird eggs, and the narrator says something about it, and I thought, oh no. But then I kept making the character more and more alive and wonderful, as if that would keep the person from the tragedy from happening, And at other times, like, basically, I've become a romantic, and I have been ending books right and left with true romance endings. Now I started to believe in them. So you can look forward to a few true romance endings coming. I guess softening up in age. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, the story that we were just talking about earlier, Wedding Dresses, and I think it's my favorite story in the whole collection. And I had shared earlier that the two characters, there's an aunt and her niece, and they really remind me a lot of my daughter and one of her aunts. And Asia, I'd like you to comment also on the illustration for this story, because this is, again, one of the it really pops, again, the illustration. And again, the theme all ties into these wedding dresses.
Oh, well, thank you for asking. This one was one of the later ones that I did, although it's earlier in the book. And I feel like I hit my stride more with it. And it feels maybe most like a true illustration rather than kind of a separate art piece. I was trying to find that proper balance. And, it's a story called Wedding Dresses. It's about these 4 marriages, the stories of the marriages that is on the surface, and some of the lower lying truths of each marriage. So I wanted to illustrate each dress, and we spoke about the dresses and how she envisioned them. And of course, they're described beautifully in the story. And then, as you said, without too many giveaways or spoilers, at the bottom of each mannequin, so there's 4 mannequins, we're on radio here, that each hold a dress, and each dress, connects to a marriage, and the marriage is described in the story. And at the bottom of each mannequin is some kind of symbol, talisman, encapsulated object that will tell more about how and why the marriage ended than because they're all 4 marriages in the past for this narrator. And that was fun, especially because, as you said, you might look at the drawing, see 4 dresses, read the story, and come back, and then you see, oh, is that hair on the floor of the first one? Oh, what's this little ermine doing there? What does that mean? So that was a very satisfying one to figure out. The bottom right dress has is hung in a gallery, and it has an art label. You can't really read the text in the book. Maybe the ebook you can zoom in enough, but it's a long text from someone who's trying to get back together with their ex and making all these excuses for their behavior. And that was really fun to write.
That was my favorite
thing. To my mom and crack her up.
Okay. Louise, there's just a lot of really good elements to that story. And there's a quote that I just want to get your take on, because when you describe some of these previous husbands, one of them, you describe a really, really good looking guy, and you say, or actually not, I guess not really. It says he didn't need to be handsome with all his blood quantum. That really struck a chord with me. Where did you come up with that line? Anyways, that was cool.
What do you mean, where did I come up with that?
I guess we all should know it, huh?
I guess we all know that there's that it's one of those issues that's been in the works for a long time, and of course it's contemporary, but I think about maybe 20 years ago I started really getting more just cognizant of what was going on in the dating world. hearing a lot about how women were making their choices. I don't know, men probably too, but I just heard from the women's point of view, like, can't really go for him, or can't. It's just part of life right now.
Right. Interesting, for sure. Geez, we're already out of time here. We just, the hour flew by. Wonderful conversation. Louise and Asia, thank you both for joining us. This has been wonderful, and looking forward to the feedback for this book and whatever comes up as well. Thank you again very much to you both. And we will be back again tomorrow, and we'll have a conversation about book bans and also an update on tribal library funding. Until then, I'm your host, Sean Spruce. Yes. You've been listening to the one, the only Native America Calling. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Sean. It's so good to be all your listeners too. Thanks. All right.
Support by the Gathering of Nations Powwow. The last dance is this April 24th and 25th at Expo, New Mexico. Gone's last horse rider and regalia parade takes place at 4 p.m. both days. Tickets at gatheringofnations.com and at the gates. Support from Rodale, publisher of A Feather and a Fork, 125 intertribal dishes from an indigenous food warrior by Crystal Wapipa with Amy Page Condon, and a foreword by Tommy Orange is now available for purchase wherever books are sold.
Every family caregiver could use help finding the necessary resources to care for their loved one. The AARP Family Caregiver Resource Guide helps family caregivers access key programs, services, and agencies in their communities. A copy of the guide is available by calling 877-333-5885 or online at aarp.org/caregiver-resources. AARP supports this show.
Native America Calling is produced in the Annenberg National Native Voice Studios in Albuquerque, New Mexico by Quantic Broadcast Corporation, a Native nonprofit media organization. Funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting with support from the Public Radio Satellite Service. Music is by Brent Michael Davids. Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.